Hey parents, I'm here to give you a short little encouragement slash equipping session of Hebrews 5:11 through 14. This is where your students are going to be going through on May the 14th, which is Mother's Day. So all my moms out there, happy Mother's Day or early Mother's Day. Want to give you a couple encouragements from the passage I'm reading this week. I'm reading from Hebrews 5:11 through 14. I want to read it to you, and then I want to just give you three things to take away from this text that you could apply practically. About this, we have much to say. It's hard to explain. Since you have become dull of hearing, for though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food. For everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil. Now, some of you may be hearing that you're like, Kyle, I thought you were going to encourage us. Well, it is a scolding text, and that's something that I'm going to highlight with the students on Sunday morning when I teach them this passage. But I think it's also a helpful reminder to us as parents that we are still dealing with and raising immature children in their faith. They need sometimes that spiritual milk, um, but we need to remind them that that can't be where it stops at. It has to go to the solid food. And even for us, that's even something we've got to remember too. This is for even for parents and for me, that a consistent, steady diet in the Word is what is really going to uh, really fill us with a propensity to obedience. It's going to show us what salvation really is in Christ when we're in the Word, and it's also going to show us how to disciple others. Here's a couple things that I really want the questions that you can ask with your student this week is really get together as a family, maybe with your student, and ask them, how can you grow in spiritual maturity this week? Is there a way your student can do that? What is one area that they're still an infant in, but need to grow in maturity in and be mature in? Uh, Maybe, it talks about that we ought to be teachers of the word, but some of you need to be taught the basic principles. You need to go back to the basics. Is there a way to where we need to be reminded of the gospel this week? Maybe it's something where your family and during dinner time, you're having a time where you're talking about something that you're learning in your quiet time that really relays the gospel message again. It could be that you go through this text and ask them, what do you think are the basics of the gospel? And really ask them and follow through with that about who God is, what has man done, and what is the problem with humanity, how Jesus is the solution. And then, since Jesus is the solution, what is our response? Is going through those different things with your student. And then, really challenging your student to think through who is another immature believer. If your student is growing in their faith, who's someone that they need that can help them, that they can help grow in their maturity. Because one of the things I'm going to challenge students this week is don't just stay thinking, oh, I'm good, I know a lot, I don't need to know any of this extra stuff and continue growing our faith, because that's when the devil seeks the opportunity to make you lack discernment, where, oh, they're not wanting to grow in their faith, well, I'm just going to do a little something there to make them doubt, or I'm going to do something a little there to make them focus more on the world in this area and not have discernment between good and evil. And unfortunately, what they'll end up doing, what the student ends up doing, is falling into evil and become guilty of falling away from their faith. And that's so often uh, the problem many times with students when they're trying to grow in their faith. So really think about this. Maybe it's attaching a note on their mirror. It could be any different thing to remind your students to grow in their faith and to disciple someone and to be discipled. So I'm hoping this will help you this week as you're reminding your students of this passage as they go into Sunday.